My parents humiliated me at their wedding anniversary. They said I wasn't part of the family. Then, during a dinner to celebrate their anniversary, they announced that next week we were all going to Hawaii for another party. Everyone was thrilled, and I asked what time the flight was. Dad replied, "You don't need to know because you won't be coming with us. You'll stay here and watch the kids." Then I threw something in their faces that made them pale instantly. "Hello, thank you for your continued support. It means a lot to us. If you enjoy the stories we tell, please subscribe to our channel. We'd appreciate it if you left a comment about which city you're watching from. We might mention you in our next story." Today's special shout-out goes to Alan from Melbourne, Australia. We're glad you enjoy our stories. Now let's dive into the details of today's story. I was standing in the kitchen, my apron stained with grease, flipping burgers on the grill while the house buzzed around me. The party for my parents' 40th anniversary was in full swing. For 40 years, Ed and Carl celebrated in a backyard filled with relatives. My hands worked quickly to keep the food coming, and my siblings Mark, Lisa, and Jay sat at a picnic table laughing with their spouses and letting the kids run around the yard. I had been busy since morning, setting up chairs, hanging garlands, and chasing after nephews who thought the cake was a punching bag. At 35, I was the oldest, the one who always fixed everything. That's how it had always been. The noise reached its peak when Dad clinked a fork against a beer bottle, standing like a king ready to make a proclamation. Mom leaned on him, smiling broadly, and the crowd fell silent. "We have an announcement," he said in his commanding voice. "Next week, we're all going to Hawaii for another party, but this time with sand and sun." Cheers erupted, Mark shouted, Lisa clapped her hands, and the kids squealed about surfing. I also felt a surge of joy. Hawaii seemed like a dream. A break from the endless routine. I flipped the last burger, wiped my hands, and moved closer. "What time is the flight?" I asked casually, trying to figure out how to adjust my work shifts. Dad turned, his gray eyes narrowing as if I had said something stupid. "You don't need to know," he said loudly for everyone to hear. "You're not coming with us. You'll stay here and watch the kids." Mom snorted, letting out a short, sharp laugh, and waved her hand as if it were nothing. Inside, I felt crushed. Silence fell over the table for a moment. Then Mark muttered something about flights, and the conversations resumed. No one looked at me, no one cared. I stood there with a spatula in hand, heat rising up my neck. After all I had done, years of fixing their mistakes, working construction to pay their bills, when Dad was laid off, watching the grandkids so my siblings could live their lives, and they didn't even consider me part of the family. I threw the spatula onto the grill, grabbed my jacket from the porch, and left. Lisa called after me, "Felix, are you okay?" But I didn't stop. The creaky door slammed behind me, and I walked away, my boots crunching on the gravel to my truck. I drove to my apartment, a cramped studio filled with reminders of them, tools I used to help Dad fix the garage, a toy car left by one of Jay's sons. I slumped on the couch, staring at the wall. At 35, I had given up everything: college, travel, my life, all for them. And in return, I got this: nobody, a babysitter. Anger flared hot and fast, but underneath it was a bone-deep weariness. I couldn't do it anymore. I thought about Hawaii, the beaches I wouldn't see. And then about a place I had always wanted to visit, a coastal town a couple of hours away, full of docks, waves, and freedom. I had driven through it once, years ago, and it had stuck with me. Nobody expected me there, nobody knew me. That was the point. I didn't sleep, pulled out a bag from the closet, and started packing: jeans, a couple of shirts, old work boots. There was no plan, just movement. I took my savings, a thin wad of cash from overtime, and checked the bus schedule on my phone. One was leaving at 5:00 am, before dawn. I paused, my finger hovering over Sophie's number. She was 16, the youngest, the only one who seemed to understand me. But I didn't call. She would try to talk me out of it, and I couldn't let that happen. The clock struck 3 am. I slung the bag over my shoulder, locked the door, and headed to the bus station. The air was cool, the streets empty, my chest tight, as if I was leaving something behind. But I kept walking. The bus pulled up, a massive gray beast. I handed over my ticket, and the driver didn't ask questions. I sat by the window in the back and watched as my city shrank as we drove away. The gas station, the hardware store, the house where I grew up, it all faded into the darkness. I leaned my forehead against the glass, my jaw clenched. They would notice I was gone when they needed something. Dad's words echoed in my head, "You're not with us." Fine, if I wasn't with them, I would be with something else, my own thing. The bus hummed, taking me to a city I barely knew, and for the first time in years I felt alive. Scared, yes, but alive. I didn't look back. The bus jerked to a stop as the sun peeked over the horizon. I stepped out into the coastal town, my boots hitting the pavement, my bag slung over my shoulder. I stood there squinting at its expanse. Docks stretched out to the water, cranes towered like giants, and ship horns sounded in the distance, loud, alive, nothing like the quiet trap I had left behind. I didn't know where to start, but that was the point. Here I wasn't the fixer. I was just Felix, and I would figure it out. On the first day, I found a room to rent, a tiny cubbyhole above a bar that shook every night from the bass. The owner, a guy with a beard like steel wire, didn't ask for references, just took the money and handed me the key. It wasn't much, a mattress, a sink, a window with a view of rusty fire escapes. But it was mine. I tossed my bag, sat on the bed, and felt the weight of what I had done. I had left without goodbyes, without a note. Soon they would wake up still unaware. And I wondered how long it would take for them to notice. The next morning, I went looking for a job. Savings don't last forever, and I wasn't planning on going back. I found a place at a cafe by the docks, a hole in the wall filled with fishermen and couriers. The manager tossed me an apron and told me to keep up. I had never served coffee for money before, and the first shift was a nightmare, spilled trays, mixed up orders, shouting behind the counter. But I gritted my teeth and pulled through. Nobody yelled at me for forgotten diapers or missed school bells. It was tough but clean. My mistakes, not theirs. That's where I met Shayla. She worked the register, sharp with quick quips and a voice that cut through the noise. "You're slow." "New guy," she said, smirking as I struggled with an order. "At least I don't scare the customers," I snapped back. She laughed genuinely, not like Mom brushed me off. Shayla was different. She didn't tiptoe around me, didn't expect me to be the hero. After her shift, she stuck around, giving me tips about the town, which streets to avoid after dark. I didn't talk much, just listened, but it was nice. Someone talked to me like I mattered. The days blurred into a week. I worked, crashed into bed, wandered the town when I couldn't sleep. The docks called to me, the most rough reel, with waves crashing against the pier. One day I walked past a pawn shop. Its window was filled with junk, and an old camera caught my eye, a bulky thing I could afford. I had held one like it in school, when I thought I would become something more than a family handyman. I bought it on impulse, thinking, why not? That night, I went to the water and took a shot of the pier jutting into the sea. It came out blurry, but I kept it. It was like a part of me was waking up. Back home, nobody called. I imagined them, Dad grumbling about luggage, Mom fussing with sunscreen, Mark, Lissa, and Jay arguing about who would drive to the airport. Sophie might notice I was gone. She was the only one who asked how I was doing, the only one I didn't want to let down. "I'm fine," I told myself. I was free, building something, even if it was fragile. Then late one night, my phone vibrated. Sophie's name lit up the screen. I paused, then answered. "Felix, where are you?" Her voice was quiet, worried. "Mom's panicking about the trip, and you're just gone." I leaned against the sink, looking at the cracked tile. I had to leave Sophie. I couldn't stay. She fell silent, then said, "They're mad, but I miss you. Please come back." My chest tightened. She was the only one who asked how I was. The only one I didn't want to disappoint. I can't, I said gentler than I intended. Not no. She sighed, and the call ended. I put the phone down, my hands clenched. Guilt gnawed at me, but I brushed it off. I had made my choice. The next day, I took the camera and shot the docks at dawn. Fishermen unloaded crates, workers shouted. The photos weren't perfect, but they were mine. Shayla caught me fiddling with the camera at work, raised an eyebrow. Didn't think you were the creative type. And I didn't think you were the curious type, I retorted. She smirked, and I felt a crack in the wall I had built. Maybe I could make a life here, become someone new. The town was rough, loud, unforgiving, but it didn't demand my soul. Not yet. I lay awake that night, the bar thumping downstairs. I thought about Hawaii. They would either go or try to. I wondered if they would notice my absence when they needed someone to calm the kids. Probably not. But I had this camera, a job, a start, small, but enough to keep going. I had been in the town for 2 weeks when it happened. My routine was settling in: wake up, trudge to the caf, serve coffee, dodge Shayla's quips. I started to enjoy the rhythm. It kept my head busy. The camera became an outlet after shifts. I caught glimpses of the town, cranes at sunset, foam on the waves. I wasn't a master, but I was improving. Home became a joust, fading with each day that they didn't call. I decided they were too busy with Hawaii to think about me. The night before their big trip, my phone rang. I was lying on the mattress, flipping through the day's photos. It was Dad's number. My stomach churned, and I almost rejected the call, but something made me answer. Felix, where the hell are you? His voice was gruff, harsh, as if I had missed a chore, not left their lives. The kids need watching tomorrow. And you're gone? What's the meaning of this? I sat up, gripping the phone tighter. 2 weeks, and this is why he calls, not to check on me, but to demand that I be the babysitter again. I took a deep breath, feeling the buried anger boil up. I'm not there, I said slowly and firmly. I left. You don't tell me what to do anymore. He stumbled over his words. What is this supposed to mean? We have the Hawaii trip, and you pull this in. Then Mom snatched the phone. Her tone was sharp as a blade. Felix, you're selfish. After everything we've done for you, this is how you repay us. I almost laughed. Years of supporting them, fixing the roof, bailing Mark out of debt, watching the grandkids, and she had the nerve to twist it around. I stood up, pacing the tiny room. The words I had held back for decades poured out. Repay you. I was your doormat since I was 18. Skipped college to pay your bills, worked my fingers to the bone so you could live comfortably, and you say I'm not with you. I'm done. Figure out the kids yourselves. Mom gasped, then barked, ungrateful. That's what you are. Dad growled something in the background, but I didn't wait. I hung up, threw the phone onto the sink, and stood there. My chest heaving, hands shaking. But I felt lighter, as if I had finally cut the noose. I barely slept, imagining them, Dad grumbling, Mom rallying the siblings to guilt me into returning. In the morning, Sophie texted, Trip's a mess. No one knows what to do with the kids. Everyone's fighting. I looked at the message, picturing the chaos, Mark shouting at Lisa, Jay complaining about ruined plans, Dad being stubborn. They had built their world on the assumption that I would always be there, and now it was crumbling. Good. Let it. I didn't reply. Work that day was a blur. I served coffee, burned my hand on the coffee maker, barely heard the orders. Shayla noticed, nudged me with her elbow while serving a guy in a fish-scented jacket. You look like you've punched someone. What's up? I grumbled, family stuff. She didn't press, but after our shift, she cornered me by the lockers. There's a photography class tonight. My friend's running it. Go clear your head. I didn't want company, but her smirk was hard to refuse. Fine, I said, grabbing my camera. The class was held in a warehouse. A dozen people with tripods and expensive lenses. I felt out of place with my pawn shop camera, but the instructor, a lanky guy named Paul, didn't mind. He talked about framing, about seeing stories in the mundane. Then we went out to shoot the docks under the streetlights. I got a decent shot, 2 workers unloading crates, shadows stretching long. Paul glanced at it. "You've got an eye. Keep at it." That stuck with me. I had never been good at anything that wasn't for them. That night I lay awake, the bar thumping downstairs. Sophie texted again, they cancelled Hawaii. Dad doesn't want to pay for a sitter. No one volunteered. I smirked, picturing their faces, Mom's scowl, Dad's reddened neck. They thought I would cave, but I was here, building something. The camera lay on the pillow, its weight comforting. I thought about Shayla. She didn't see me as a ghost, and about Paul's words on seeing stories. Maybe I could be more than their handyman. I got up, flipped through the photos, workers on the pier, a seagull in flight. Not perfect, but mine. I shot them without anyone telling me where to stand or what to fix. The phone buzzed again. Sophie wanted me to call. I wanted to for her sake, but not now. Maybe one day she would understand. I put the phone down, picked up the camera. Tomorrow I would shoot the waves at dawn. They would crash, and so would I, but I wouldn't be holding anyone's problems but my own. I had been in the town for 3 months when Dad showed up. By then I had a routine shifts at the cafe, nights with the camera, a life that didn't revolve around others' needs. The room above the bar still shook from the noise, but I had grown used to it, even liked how it drowned out thoughts. Work had become stable. I could make a light without cursing under my breath. Shayla was a constant presence, always there with quips and ideas, like the photography class that had turned into a weekly thing. I started a portfolio, shots of the docks and the people who worked there. Roof reel. Paul said something might come of it. I was starting to believe him. That day I was behind the counter, wiping down the coffee machine, when the door swung open. It was him, Dad. His gray hair was disheveled, shoulders slumped, but the same stern gaze I knew from childhood. My hands paused. He looked around, caught my eye, and walked over like he owned the place. Customers glanced and looked away. Shayla raised an eyebrow from the register but said nothing. "Felix," he said, low and gruff. "We need to talk." My jaw clenched. I hadn't heard from him since that call, since the Hawaii fiasco, and now he was here, uninvited, in my space. I nodded toward the back, led him to a corner where the hum of the fridge covered us. "What do you want to?" I asked, crossing my arms. He shifted his weight, clearly uncomfortable now that I wasn't slouching in front of him. "You left," he said. "Left us in a mess." Hawaii didn't happen. The family's been in disarray ever since. I waited, letting the silence stretch. He rubbed his neck, mumbled, "Didn't think you'd leave for good. The trip's off. We can't do it without you. The family's falling apart." I looked at him, waiting for more. He glanced up, expectant, as if that should be enough to erase everything. I let out a short, bitter laugh. "You need me. That's why you're here. Not because you care, but because the trip fell through." He tensed, his face reddening. "Watch your tongue, boy. We raised you." "Raised Mem." I interrupted, my voice rising. "You leaned on me. I was 18 when I started paying your bills. 25 when I fixed your garage for free. 35 when you said I wasn't family. I'm not your handyman anymore." He opened his mouth, then closed it. His fist clenched. For the first time, he had no comeback. I egg-shelled, stepped back. "Sit down," I said, softer. "Have some coffee." He hesitated, then sat by the window. I took 2 mugs, poured black, no cream, just how he liked it, and sat across from him. He stared at the mug, then at me. "What's this?" He grumbled, nodding at the camera on my shoulder. I placed it on the table, scrolled through the screen, the pier, a fisherman with nets. "This is what I do," I said. "For myself." He squinted, looked silently. Then pushed the camera away. "Didn't know you were into this." You never asked, I snapped. We sat in awkward silence, sipping our coffee. I had never seen him like this, but I wanted him to see me, not the version that always agreed. He finished his coffee, stood up. Think about it, he said. The door's open. I shook my head. I'm staying. He nodded slowly, as if he expected it but didn't want it. Then he left. His heavy footsteps echoed on the floor. I watched him go, the knot in my chest loosening. Shayla came over after and leaned against the counter. That your old man? She asked. Yeah, I said, scrubbing a mug furiously. Quite the character, she smirked. Looks like you handled him. Class tonight. Paul knows someone from a gallery. Bring your stuff. I grumbled a yeah, my head still spinning. Dad's visit had shaken me, but it hadn't broken me. That night, I went to the class, showed Paul my portfolio. He flipped through, pointed at a shot of waves crashing against rocks. There's power in this. The gallery's doing a small local exhibition. Submit. I froze. Me in a gallery. But Shayla smirked, nudged me in the side. Told you to go for it. I nodded, stunned. Later I sat in my room, photos spread out on the bed. I chose a few: the wave, the fisherman, an old family photo from the anniversary, faded and creased. Roots and wings, I called it. The past and present intertwined but separate. Sophie texted while I was gathering them. Dad's been quiet since he got back. Yeah, I replied. She didn't text back, but I didn't need her to. Dad's shadow had come and gone, and I was still standing. The exhibition was my chance, my way back to who I was. I wasn't going back. I grabbed my camera, headed for the door. Tomorrow I would shoot the docs at dawn. They would move, and so would it. The night of the exhibition crept up quickly, and I wasn't ready. 3 months ago, I was serving coffee and dodging family guilt, and now I was pacing a warehouse-turned-art space. My photos hung on the walls, small, local stuff, chipped paint, folding chairs. But for me, it was huge. My portfolio was there: a fisherman hauling nets, a wave crashing against rocks, an old family photo from the anniversary. All on the edge of tension. Roots and wings, the name that had stuck in my head after Dad's visit. Sheila pushed me, Paul approved, and there I was. My palms were sweaty, waiting for people. The place filled up quickly: dockworkers in clean shirts, artsy types in glasses, a few regulars. Shayla barged in with a smirk, a crowd of friends from the class. Look at you, a star, she said, poking me in the arm. I smirked back, grumbled, shut up, but I was glad she was there. Paul walked around, shaking hands, pointing at my work. I stayed by the wall, watching strangers squint at my shots. A guy in a flannel shirt stopped by the wave photo, nodded slowly. There's power in it, he said, and moved on. I didn't know what to say, so I said nothing. But it meant something. I had created something, and they saw it. The evening flew by. People mingled, sipped cheap wine, talked louder with each hour. A woman with a tablet, a friend of Paul's from the gallery, bought the fisherman photo right off the wall. $50, my first sale for a photo. I stuffed the money in my pocket as if it might disappear. Shayla raised her plastic cup. You're gonna make it, she said. I shrugged, but inside I was buzzing. This was mine. Not a favor, not a fix, just me. No one from home was there to see it, and it stung a bit, but it didn't ruin it. Later I stepped outside, the noise fading behind me. The city hummed, ship horns, a drunk shouting somewhere down the line. I leaned against the wall, thinking about how far I had come. That bus ride from the city, the call with Dad, the coffee I had served him, it felt like years ago, not months. My phone buzzed in my pocket. Sophie. Heard you're doing well. Dad and Mom are trying for Hawaii again, taking the kids. Weird without you. I looked at the message, picturing it: Dad grumbling about luggage, Mom herding grandkids. Mark and Lissa bickering over the first failure. They had managed, almost. I texted back, glad they're going. I'm good here. She sent a thumbs up, and that was it. No pull to go back. Sophie's words used to gnaw at me, make me doubt my decision to leave. Now they didn't. They had moved on, and so had. The gallery door swung open. Shayla poked her head out. "Hiding," she teased. "Paul's wrapping up." I went back and caught the end of his thanks. He nodded at me. "There's something real in Felix's work. Keep an eye on him." A few people clapped. I looked down, not used to the attention. It was all over quickly. I helped stack chairs, the buzz still humming inside as the room emptied. I grabbed my camera and left. It was late, but I didn't feel like sleeping. I walked to the shore, the city fading behind me until it was just me and the water. Dawn was breaking, the sky gray, the waves restless. I set up the tripod, framed the shot, a lone wave about to crash. I clicked the shutter, held my breath as it hit. The screen lit up, sharp and vivid. I sat on the rocks, watching the light spread, and felt something settle close but not quite. I thought about the family photo on the gallery wall, Dad's stern gaze, Mom's strained smile, me in the back, half cropped out. That life, those years I gave them, would always be a part of me. But this camera, the city, the wave, that was what I chose. They were probably on their way to Hawaii, building something without me, and I wasn't mad. They had built something without me, and I had built this. The ties were thin and frayed, but they didn't need mending yet. The sun broke over the horizon. I gathered myself, boots crunching on the gravel. Later I would go to the cafe, serve coffee. Maybe show Shayla the shot. Paul had mentioned another exhibition, and I was already thinking about what to shoot next. The city sprawled ahead, rough and loud, and I walked into it, camera on my shoulder. I was no longer the person who left, nor the one who stayed too long. I was just Felix, and that was enough. If Felix's journey resonates with you, hit like and comment on which moment made you feel free, and choose yourself. Subscribe for more stories like this, and hit the bell to not miss the next one. Thanks for listening. See you in the next story.